Hey guys, how's it going? Statman coming back at you once again, and today we are going to talk about some more underrated horror movies that I truly enjoy and why I feel like they're underrated. My favorite underrated horror movies. We're going to get started with one that I picked up recently. I guess it's sort of recently. It's within the past few months. And that would be this was an acquisition that was more of a upgrade because I had the DVD set, the exact same DVD set, and I just got it on Blu-ray. That would be the double feature of Poltergeist 2 and 3, so I guess I get to talk about both movies here. Of the two, I'd say Poltergeist 2 is definitely the better movie because it just has better special effects elements to it. They got some really fucking good practical effects in the second movie, and they also reference Night of the Hunter in this movie, which is it's just fucking fantastic. I love it. If you're really into horror movies, like the history of horror movies and stuff like that, I mean, they reference Night of the Hunter for fuck's sake. So if you are a horror hound who watches movies like this all the fucking time, then there are references and there are things that you're going to pick up on here that are just fucking beautiful and fantastic. And honestly, even though the story is kind of a bit cliche, and well, I don't know if I would say cliche. There are some cliche elements to it, but corny. It's a bit corny. You've got the fucking mystic Indian thing going on here, you know? I mean, I gotta be honest here. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done, especially when you incorporate all the other elements into it, and it's just all the other elements are so fucking good that it's just undeniably fun to watch. And I definitely find myself revisiting this one every now and then. When, the first time I saw it, I never thought I'd watch it again because at the time I didn't know much about movies. I didn't know much about horror movies. I didn't know that there was a reference to Night of the Hunter in this. I didn't understand the importance of the movie or of the references it was making or of what they were doing with the practical effects. I didn't understand any of that shit. Now that I understand it, I have much more of an appreciation for the movie. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love it. Even though it's got the kind of racist attitude toward Native Americans in here, what are you going to do? It's still a really good movie. So there's that. Poltergeist 2 is pretty good, and then there's Poltergeist 3 on here, which a lot of people say Poltergeist 3 is a pile of crap. Why would you want it? Well, let me just say this about Poltergeist 3. It was made in the 80s. The excess of the 80s, you may remember. I guess the excess isn't really a way to put it, but when you think of 80s, you think of people making it big on Wall Street. You think of people trying to live in excess, getting into debt and stuff like that so that they can live fancier lives and get fancier apartments and all that shit. And the mod thing really comes into the culture at that time, the mod art style and whatnot, and it really penetrated fucking everything. Of course, it was kind of a derelict of the 70s, I think, in a lot of ways, but regardless, you had a lot of people trying to live a certain kind of lifestyle, which was to a lot of the more Protestant kind of people out there, the lifestyle that people were trying to live, the fast and easy drug-addled lifestyle that people were trying to live. Fucking cocaine was huge at the time, a lot of the more Protestant people were not very happy with that, and a lot of people foretelling the end of the world kind of shit happening. And Poltergeist 3 definitely doesn't have anything like that going on, but there are a lot of fucking things in that movie that are very much a product of the time that I pick up on now and see as being really fucking important. So the main thing that happens in this movie is that you see a lot of things like ghosts in mirrors. Everything takes place in mirrors. There are mirrors fucking everywhere in this movie. Fucking mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors. The fucking closet doors have mirrors. Everything has mirrors, because remember, in the 80s, everything had fucking mirrors. And of course, it's basically just Carol Ann with her, like, aunt and uncle. I can't remember why, but she's spending time with them. And the Reverend Kane from the second movie comes back and haunts her in this apartment building. Now that's cool to me, because I would like you to tell me how many hauntings take place in apartment buildings, or how many movies feature hauntings taking place in apartment buildings. I'll give you a hint. Not fucking many. So that immediately makes this relevant. That immediately makes this important, because it's different, it's unique, it's creative, it's a different take on things. And not only that, but they're living in, like, downtown fucking Chicago. So this is a haunting taking place in a downtown Chicago high-end loft, essentially, where there's lots of mirrors, everything's mod, you know, and just so many interesting elements to that I feel like you don't get to see in very many horror movies. You don't get to see hauntings taking place in modern, wealthy, high-end places, but you do in Poltergeist 3. And I think that was a little off-putting for a lot of people, but regardless, was very important and very cool. So that's one of the reasons I really like it. I mentioned the whole cocaine thing, and I really do think there might be something with the whole mirrors everywhere, cocaine was big in the 80s kind of thing. People snorted coke off of mirrors, you know, that kind of thing. There might be something to that kind of visual in there. But, you know, I also feel like there's this aspect to the mirrors that's really cool. There's in particular one scene where you see a door opening in the mirror, and in each individual mirror you see like a door opening, and you see a ghostly character peeking its head out and looking down the hallway as Carol Ann is like running away, kind of thing going on. So, God, just thinking about it makes me creeped out, right? There's this aspect to that kind of thing that's very much like a reproduction kind of thing, which is very much an aspect of the postmodern era. So, like, if you think of postmodernism, you think of somebody like Andy Warhol. And when you think of Andy Warhol, you think of his work that he did with, like, the Madonna thing, where, you know, it had the same picture of Madonna, slightly different color tinted. And essentially what he did there is, like, he was printing out these Madonna pictures, and he just ran the, from what I understand, just ran the printer until the ink ran dry, kind of thing, until I got these results where the color was all faded, the color was all fucked up and everything. And that's the postmodern image of Marilyn Monroe that you see now. I hope that I said Marilyn Monroe before. If I didn't, that's what I meant. So yeah, there's that aspect of the postmodern replication. Replication was a huge thing with postmodernism, because it's all about, it's an art movement all about being accessible to the people, kind of thing. So what's more accessible than a fucking mirror, and what's more accessible than seeing the same image over and over and over and over and over again, in maybe a slightly different way, but, you know, it's very much like the same thing over and over and over again. There's kind of a subliminal kind of message to that. Very cool kind of stuff, in my opinion. I very much like that kind of aspect of postmodernism. So when I see Poltergeist 3, I see a very postmodern movie that is not at all like other horror movies, and I have to respect it just on that alone. Do I think it's a great movie? No. But it's a 6 out of 10, and it has value, it has merit. So, definitely worth picking up, in my opinion. That's why I picked up this set again with 2 and 3. Because, yeah, I mean, there are aspects of that movie that, upon a second viewing, to me, just were like, holy shit, I didn't pick up on that the first time. But now that I've studied more about film, I can see what they were trying to do, or maybe what they were trying to do. And I can see how even if they weren't trying to do anything, this is still important, it's unique, it's creative, and it's worthy of merit. I just spent 10 minutes talking about those two movies. Isn't that fucking amazing? So, let's continue here. We have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake. This one was produced, I believe, by Michael Bay. Yes, produced by Michael Bay. Directed by Marcus Nispel. Whatever the case may be, I really liked this movie. I really liked aspects of it. I felt like there were certain aspects that maybe they weren't like better than the original movie, but they were different and a little bit more disturbing in some ways. Obviously, I would say the original is more disturbing, is the most disturbing, and it's dark and depraved, bleh, and just excellent. Without it, we wouldn't have something like this. But there are elements of this that really just felt like even more gloomy and more like the despair of humanity, I guess, than the original did. There's this one particular scene that I will never forget where this girl blows her brains out in the back seat of a truck, or not a truck, a van, and this one guy is being intimidated into essentially moving over to where she was, where there are a bunch of fucking like leftover brains still sitting in that particular area. He's being pressured to sit there, and so you just see him like, you know, shaking, hands shaking, trying to like push the brains aside so that he can sit there because he's being intimidated into doing that. And Arlie Ermey's role in that, his role in this movie and in the other movie that came after it, fucking fantastic. You gotta love Arlie Ermey. One of the reasons I really enjoy this interpretation of the movie, of the story, I guess. And yeah, a lot of people didn't like it. I don't know why, because honestly, it's quite good. You know, upon reflection, it's a pretty damn good horror movie. I enjoy it. So, yeah, that's why I picked it up, I think, last year for about $6. So, yeah. Let's see here. Alright. Next up we have The Ring. The Ring. The remake of The Ring. This isn't Ringu. It's not the original Japanese horror movie that inspired it, but there are elements of this movie, of this remake, that I really enjoyed more than the original. And in particular, I liked how there's a blue filter over everything. It seemed like this is one of the first movies that came out in a long line of movies that were just using blue filters for fucking everything. Might have been inspired more by something like The Sixth Sense, but I don't feel like blue filters were used heavily in that. They were at times, but not all the time. So the fact that they just go all out with this one, and they're like, even the cover is blue. I think the cover is blue for a reason, because there are many moments in this movie that are just, if you look at it, if you watch it, it's just like, there is a heavy blue filter applied to this fucking movie throughout like a good 75 to 80% of the movie. So, yeah, it really does have the effect of making it feel more depressing, sad. So you get like this depression and sadness feel to it, in addition to the story itself, which is terrifying and creepy and also sad. So I felt like in that case the blue filter was actually a really good choice, because it actually added to the story in some way, it added to the movie in some way, that made you feel like the depression that maybe the ghost was feeling. You know what I mean? You were kind of feeling like you were getting a sense of what that ghost might actually feel like, and what they wanted to get across, essentially. In particular, there's this moment with a horse and a what is it? Transport. What is it? Ferry. And the horse jumps off a ferry essentially into the water. And I believe that was shot in Seattle, and like it was done in the Puget Sound essentially. So, being somebody from the Northwest, I really like that aspect of it. You know, it was really cool. I liked it. I don't like everything about it. It's definitely not like the greatest movie ever. It's not the greatest interpretation of a foreign horror movie ever. Not the greatest remake ever. But there are aspects, like the other movies I've talked about here, there are aspects of this movie that are, to me, really cool. And there are things that most people don't pick up on, most people don't actually think about, but when you do stop to think about them, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of nifty. And there's a certain artistic flavor to that that is worthy of merit, worthy of a little bit of respect. So, yeah, I think I picked this one up for $5, and for $5, not a bad deal, honestly. The Ring is a good enough movie to pay $5 for it, you know what I mean? So, last but not least here tonight, I'm going to talk about my favorite Resident Evil movie, because most of the Resident Evil movies are not even worth watching. A lot of them are total crap. There's one movie that's just so over-the-top ridiculous that it's hilarious. And the one that I like is the one that's, well, let's just say it pays homage to a lot of, like, important horror movies, essentially. Important horror concepts. So, because of that, I really enjoyed it more than others. And I also felt like the story was just, it was a lot better. Resident Evil Extinction here. Now, a lot of people would say this is the worst in the franchise, and I would completely disagree with you there, because what I was talking about there are elements of like George Romero style fucking zombies and whatnot in this, and it's just beautiful. There are scenes in this movie that feel like they're straight out of a Dawn of the Dead movie, or an Of the Dead movie, I guess is what I would say. And I really dig that about it. I really felt like that was really cool. And, you know, you add in the element of the story in there, and I felt like the story was fairly robust. It made sense. It flowed pretty damn well. And that's more than you can say, really, for, like, the second movie, or the first movie, or the fourth movie, or the fifth movie. I honestly believe that Extinction has a better flow and is just a better horror movie all around than any of the other Resident Evil movies. Like, maybe the first one's a bit better of a horror movie, but this is the one that I feel like is really underrated. A lot of people like the first Resident Evil. Nobody really talks about Extinction. So, yes, Extinction is the one to fucking watch, in my opinion. That being said, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Peace.